Hey everybody, MegaRuler31 back here after the All-Star break for FSi DFS. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our All-Star break, All-Star team with Gator Guy and McKinley joining me there. I know some of the strategy didn't work out for everybody, but I was able to actually cash even McClanahan as captain. I had Javier, and I had the rest of the pitchers. I didn't have Goslin, thank goodness. I had the ones that actually pretty much K'd the side, like Manoa, and so didn't. Was able to cash there. GPPs. I did play some bats. I did have some of the home runs, but I didn't have all the home runs, so it wasn't a great night, but it was sufficient. So yesterday's slate was okay. Didn't do a video. It's just so hard with like we didn't even know if we were gonna get like the lineups for like the double headers or like who was gonna play or things like that. So, but today we have a large 13 game slate. No weather concerns. Front end of most rotations, so we got a lot of pitching options and hitting options. Are a little bit sparse just due to the quality of pitching that's out there, but we'll break it down, give you some options. Want to welcome all of you who are listening to us now on our podcast. We're doing a simulcast of this YouTube video on podcast, so you can find it on Apple and Spotify. So if you don't have time to watch our video, or if you're like out like driving or mowing the lawn or taking a walk, you can now listen to FSI videos on those podcast streaming apps or websites, whatever. So Apple, Spotify, check us out, subscribe to us there, and you'll know when our videos are coming up. So let's get into this really big slate. So first game up, we have the Miami Marlins, Pittsburgh Pirates. We have Braxton Garrett and Jose Quintana. Garrett's been okay. He's a lefty against Pittsburgh, and most of their new up-and-coming power are lefties, so he has the splits advantage. So I think he's okay in the cheap range here. Don't really have too many cheap pitchers that we really love today. So, and it is a pitcher's ballpark. It is 86 degrees with a little bit of wind blowing out, but I don't think that's really going to bump up hitting a super amount. So I think we're safe there if you want to pay down for him for an SP two candidate. I think there's one other guy that I like a little bit better there. And then for Pittsburgh, Quintana, not really interested here against the Marlins. I think I guess he is a cheap option, so I guess you can keep him in there at 6.3 if you're playing like 150 max. It's a big slate, so I think both of them are okay. The bat wise, I'm not really interested. Like I said, Pitt, most of their power new guys are lefties, so they'll probably stack like righties up top, like Newman, Hayes, and Chavis, which I'm fine with. Maybe Diego Castillo, but like a 3.7, that's a little pricey. So I don't really like the pricing on here. I don't really like the matchup in a hitter's ballpark against Garrett. So I think I'm going to pass on both these teams. So 150 max, play Pitt, and Miami I think is just in the leftover bin. New York Yankees and Baltimore Orioles. Apparently, Houston is a kryptonite for the Yankees. They just cannot beat them. So, lost two to them yesterday. Now they go to the Camden Yards here. 92 degrees, wind blowing off 5 miles per hour. So, we have Tyon and Wells. Tyon, I think, there are some Ks in this Baltimore lineup, but with the amount of pitching options that you have today, 8.3 is a little bit of a discount on some of the guys, but I just think you're going to pay like the maybe $1,000 or even $700 more and move up to like the low 9K range where you've got some guys that could put up 30 points or something. So not interested in Tyon here. Wells on the other side, he's been decent this year. I just think he's like a little bit risky against this Yankees team. They, even though they were a little bit quiet yesterday, I still think they are going to be able to come out in this series and just return to do Yankees things. So we'll see who's in the lineup there for the Yankees. They're very expensive. Like your Judges 6.2, Rizzo, Stanton, Donaldson are all in like the 5K range on DK. LeMahieu's almost there at 4.7. So maybe the bottom of the order if you want to stack it there. Baltimore's bullpen's decent too. So once you get past Wells, it's not like, it's like a complete garbage situation like it's been in years past. So and for the Baltimore bats here, they're cheap, and maybe some of the lefties like Santander or his switch hitter Mullins, Rushman, if just like pieces here, but really not interested in them that much. So I think Yankees are the top GPP stack because people won't want to pay up for them, and there's a lot of other options on the slate, and they'll have lower ownership than normal. So I might take advantage of that and throw out a Yankee stack. Next up, we have the Chicago Cubs going to the Philadelphia Phillies. Decent hitting ballpark, wind blowing out at 10 miles per hour and 92 degrees, so that should help with hitting here. So Justin Steele, I played him some this year, but I just don't like him here, especially with being a lefty with all these power bats that are righties on the Phillies. And then Kyle Gibson on the other side. I think you can make a case for him as being like the cheapest SP2 if you want to go down that low. The Cubs do have some left-handed guys that can get you, but overall, I think he'll pretty much be able to neutralize the righties and have a decent game, even though the hitting conditions. So the Cubs, I think you can take the bats if you want like a cheaper stack. I mean, they're starting to get up there. Like Contreras is at 5K, he's like the highest price guy, and like Happ and Suzuki are down the 4K range. But like Ortega leading off is 2.9. He's got power every so often. He's more of like a elite, your typical leadoff guy, just get on base. More of a contact hitter there. So not super interested in the Cubs. Philly on the other side, I think definitely are probably one of the top stacks, especially, like I said, with the right-handed power. Schwarber, and if you notice, if you're watching the video on the bottom right, I have a list of all the guys that were in the home run derby, and I've just seen in years past that if you go to the home run derby, there's been some times where it just really screws up their swing because they're trying to like hit the ball out of the yard and not trying to hit the ball like they would in a normal game situation. And sometimes it takes a couple of days or so to get back and get their timing back and readjust to it, especially if they go deeper into the contest. So I don't know if any of these guys are really worrying about. Schwarber's the first one that we come to today. The ones in the home run derby were Soto, who won it against J-Rod in Seattle. So those two would be probably the most concerned. Alonso has like participated in the last 3 years and done well, and it really hasn't messed him up. Pujols, I was just surprised that he actually advanced out of the first round. They could still hit home runs, so I don't think there's really any to worry about there. Seager, I'm kind of intrigued by. He did make it to no, he didn't make it to the second round, so we'll have to see there. Acuna is probably fine. Jose Ramirez is probably fine also. Ben Schwarber, like, he looked horrible in the home run contest, so maybe he didn't adjust the swing and didn't get it, so I think he's potentially okay there. So Schwarber, lefty and lefty, it's a hefty price tag. I think he's okay, especially once he gets to the Cubs bullpen. If you want to leave him off the stack, if you're stacking Philly, that's fine. But then you have the meat there. Hoskins, Castellanos, Realmuto, Baum, even Verling, if he's up there at like 2.4 at third base or outfield at only 2.4, that is a great price there. So if you want to stack them 2 through 6, I think that's great. If you want to throw Schwarber in there and drop like JT Realmuto at like 5.4 is like the catcher who's very expensive and go in another direction there, then I'm fine with that also. Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox, Kevin Gausman and Nathan Eovaldi. Gausman has actually owned the Red Sox, even though he's struggled this year and his form has been great at times. I think he's got like 3 straight games where he's been like 25 to 30 DK points against the Red Sox, even after the early season where they like started to pick it up again. So I think he's very interesting in a GPP at 9.1. It's a little bit of savings off some of the top pitchers. So he's definitely in the back of my mind today to take some shots on. Eovaldi on the other side, he's been good, but Toronto's just been really good also. It's in Fenway Park. Here the wind's blowing out at 10 miles per hour and it's 93 degrees also. So that's going to definitely, Fenway's become almost like Wrigley Field, where it's like become more of a hitter's ballpark this season we've seen recently, especially with the hotter temperatures and any wind blowing out. So I think that definitely upgrades hitters here. But both these teams against decent pitchers, I think they're like 150 max or, maybe my 7th or an 8th or 6th and 7th GPP stacks today. So I think, if you're playing 150 max, then definitely take some stacks of them. I really wouldn't worry about one-offs here. I just probably play them. Of course, with Boston, you're going to look more for like the lefties, so you're going to take like Duran if he's leading off, Devers, Verdugo, Cordero and Jackie Bradley are down deeper in the lineup, but they actually like save you some money. Maybe do like a wraparound stack. You do like 7, 8, skip 9, and then do like 1, 1 and 2 or something like that. So just see how the lineup comes out. So if you want to put some of the righties in there, like JD Martinez and Bogart are great hitters anyway. So sometimes they see a lot of righties, so they can get hits off them also. And then for the Blue Jays, again, you probably just want to stack the top of the lineup there. They're probably not going to see any lefties in the lineup against Eovaldi. Next up, we have San Diego Padres and New York Mets. On paper, we have a decent pitching matchup here. We have Yu Darvish and Max Scherzer. Darvish struggled it sometimes this year. He's given up some runs, and the Mets are a hard matchup where they're very patient. They don't strike out a lot, and they walk. They take a lot of pitches. So I don't think Darvish is one of the top pitchers I'd like. I think he's in the risky category, but I don't say completely rule him out. He's not a 100% fade. Scherzer on the other side, I think between he and Burns are probably going to be the top pitchers on the slate, but you're paying $10K over them, and there's two guys that we're going to go to the next game in the $9K range and the high $8K range that I think would definitely could match them for points and save you like $1,000 so or more. So Scherzer's definitely not out of the question against the Padres. They have struck out at times and struggled. And then Yu Darvish, like I said, really, if you're playing 150 max, yes, that's fine. 20 max, maybe, but I don't think I'm going to have much exposure to him on this like large slate with a lot of pitching options. So San Diego Padres would probably be the second highest leverage stack here against Scherzer. So, things can go wrong here. They have some lefties, definitely Cronenworth and Hosmer, that can hit righties pretty well. So, and Profar is probably leading off as a switch hitter, so you can maybe make a mini stack there or do it as a full leverage stack. The Mets on the other side, I think they're just on 150 max. They might be able to get the Darvish, especially like the lefties and the switch hitters there, but overall, if he gets blown up and you have a Mets stack, then you're fine. Probably a little ownership, but I don't think they're a huge priority. Angels and Braves, great pitching matchup here. You have Shohei Ohtani and Charlie Morton. I think at 9K and 8.8, these are two of my favorite pitchers on the slate. And if you don't care about the win, like knowing that both of them have 25 point to 30 point upside here in this matchup, I know you're probably fearing Ohtani, but the Braves do have some strikeouts in this lineup. They have been striking out this season. And Morton on the other side, Trout's out of the lineup. Ohtani's pitching, and like they really don't have lefties that really scare you. So, and Morton's been very consistent this year. So, said play both of them potentially. You're just giving up the win for one of them, or make him your SP1 and pay down for SP2, or pair them with Burns and Scherzer. So there's lots of different ways you can go here. For bat-wise, I think Atlanta against Ohtani would obviously be the number one leverage stack. Just like, are you going to pay 6-1, 5-7, 5-4, and 5-5 against Ohtani? This is definitely a YOLO GPP right here, just with the pricing against a good pitcher. Once you get to the Angels bullpen, I know it's a different story, but Ohtani goes decently deep into games, so you should probably get through the rotation. So you might see like 1 or 2 at bats against the bullpen. So I think that's too high of a price to pay for that. On the other side, the Angels, like you can't play Ohtani, so this is just pretty much like a dumpster fire here too. Like Ward and Referee Joe, who we loved at like minimum price when he was like batting 5th, but now he's up to like 3rd in the lineup because they really have nobody left. Odell, Vihar, Stassi, I'd rather have him against a lefty. Like Marsh is falling all the way down to the bottom of the lineup. It's just not a great lineup. So, and wind's blowing in a little bit. It's going to be a little bit cooler in Atlanta than normal, 83 degrees, as opposed to when it's usually like 90 or 100. So, I'm pretty much off the Angels today. Tampa Bay and the Kansas City Royals. This is a pick'em game here. Drew Rasmussen and Brad Keller. I think Rasmussen is definitely if you're betting on this game, Tampa Bay's starting to get healthier here, and Keller's been good, but he's just faced like some inferior competition recently. So Rasmussen, I think, would be my least favorite recommended cheap pitcher. Like I only have four of them up on the board here, so I think he's still in the conversation for cheap pitchers, but I definitely like Gibson, Garrett, and Quintana better than him. Keller on the other side, I just really have no interest in. And like Tampa Bay is coming back. They have some lefties that can hit pretty well. Brandon Lau's back in the lineup. Once they get past them to the Kansas City bullpen, I think Tampa Bay definitely could be one of the top stacks tonight. I have them as number 5 here, and the pricing on them is decent. Also, like Lau at only 7.3, like he's or 7.3, 4.3, he's pretty cheap. So I think he definitely is good, and Choi is usually pretty cheap at 3.8, and Paredes, even though he's a righty on righty matchup here, he's been hitting well also. So I think you can make a decent Tampa Bay stack, and it's not super expensive, so you can get good pitchers in there. Kansas City on the other side of it, I think are worth a GPP. Rasmussen has been decent, but the Tampa Bay bullpen at times has not, and it looks like almost all the guys are going to be back here for, besides their catcher Perez is still going to be out for a while. But most of the Kansas City, like Merrifield, should be back in the lineup with their Benetiende. So Pascuino has some power. It's just a matter of time before he starts putting it together. So Kansas City, I like as a GPP stack. Colorado Rockies and Milwaukee Brewers. Sensatella is probably the worst pitcher on the slate here, so absolute fade there. Corbin Burns is in a great matchup against Colorado. They're much better against left-handed pitching. They struggle against right-handed pitching, and it's non-course field. So they only have a 2.76 total, by far the lowest. So I think Burns becomes a top pitcher on the slate. But again, like I said, if you want to fade him and go Otani or Morton, that's fine. But Burns is committed to win here. He skipped the All-Star game, so he could continue focusing on pitching. He thinks he's going to go about 200 innings this season, he said. So, they're going to leave him out there. They do have a decent bullpen usually behind him. So, but I don't think he's going to struggle here. I think he's going to go out and have a really good game. So Colorado is obviously a leverage stack. If you don't believe that, and you think that anything can happen in baseball, this is probably the second biggest YOLO stack behind the Braves, who are just super high priced against a good pitcher. And then Milwaukee on the other side is going to be my favorite stack, especially the lefties here. Yelich and Tellez. I'd even take Adames against righty on righty. McCutcheon I might not consider. Wong, Peterson. I mean, you could probably Navarez at catcher. You can probably play almost anybody here besides me. I'd probably fade like Renfroe and Jonathan Davis. Renfroe's almost 4K, and he's more of a lefty smasher than against a righty. So Cleveland Guardians and the Chicago White Sox, Quantrill and Luis Giolito. Not interested in Quantrill here. White Sox again healthy, starting to put it back together. I think Jimenez is going to be back in the lineup again after being out, coming back, and going back out again. I think he has enough rest. He should be fine. Giolito on the other side is coming back. Still priced pretty low. Probably could put up like anywhere from 12 to 18, maybe up to 20 fantasy points at 7.8. That's a great price. So I think he's my second favorite mid-range guy at like 7.8, behind Morton at 8.8. So, but Cleveland's a tough matchup. We always said they don't really strike out. They're patient. You got some good hitters here, especially some power from the left-hand side with like Naylor and Jose Ramirez. Jimenez is going to be a good player coming up. Had a great play in the All-Star game if you missed that. Amazing like fielding play, flipped it behind his back. And then Jones at 2K is still like a guy that has power and upside that you can just throw in as a punt play in a GPP. And it could always love a guy at 2K that has like power upside, especially with the splits advantage. So Cleveland, I think definitely, I have him at 150 max, just because like Gilo has been decent and they have like a pretty low total here. But I think, in looking, and they're definitely a top 10 in GPP today for stacking. White Sox on the other side are probably my third favorite stack. I think they can get to Quantrill here, and even I'm okay with like the righties and the lefties here. So I think if you want to play a stack of them, they've got a nice total at 4.39. And the totals aren't like high today. There's nobody at like 5 or 6. There's no Coors Field. There's no wind blowing out at Wrigley. There's no garbage pitchers. So a 4.39 is pretty healthy total on this slate. Next up, we have the Texas Rangers and the Oakland Athletics. We have Spencer Howard and Cole Irvin. It's a pick'em game here with only a 7 total, 350 on each side. Howard's been bad at times, but he's up against the A's, so at 5-1, he's on my fade list. But like, if you really want to dumpster dive and take a punt, I think he might be okay. But I've seen the A's put up runs, and it's actually winds blowing out 11 miles per hour, only 66 degrees there, so it's not going to be like super hot. Cole Irvin on the other side's had some control issues, and Texas has been hot at times, so I think Texas is my 5th favorite GPP stack here. We'll see if Seager can pick up where he left off after the before the All-Star break, and Simeon hits both sides decent. Heim, low, Travaris, a switch hitter, so I think you can make a decent stack here. Garcia also. Actually, Cole's a lefty, so you want the righty. So yeah, there's a decent amount of options. The upper, you got 2 5K guys, but you got cheap guys behind them, so it definitely works out. A's on the other side, I think this is a decent player pool of some really cheap guys. So if you need a cheap fill-in at third base, you have like Manchin there. If you need a cheap outfielder, you have Bolt. I'd probably take Jones from Cleveland over him. But for some reason, you need 2K guys. So like you're trying to play like Atlanta and Burns and like Scherzer or something like that, then I don't even know if that mathematically is going to work. You're probably going to need some of these guys. So there's some cheap fill-in options on the A's, and I think that's they're like the 99-cent bin at the discount store here, or maybe even the 50-cent bin at the dollar store, half price. So Washington Nationals and the Arizona Diamondbacks, Patrick Corbin and Zach Gallen. Corbin's really struggled this year. I know he's had a couple good games, but they were on like weaker slates against weaker competition. Arizona has some righties that can hit lefties pretty well. Gallen on the other side, besides Soto, and again, we'll see what happens with his home run swing after the All-Star game home run derby. Josh Bell, only 2 I'm really worried about, so I think Gallen's definitely in the conversation as a pitching guy in the mid-range today. I have him ranked below Morton, Giolito, and Evaldi. He might, maybe on safeness, he might be a little bit better than Evaldi, so maybe I'll end up moving him up above that before I post the final ones here. Washington, they're in the leftover section, really not interested in any of them. Diamondbacks, I'm super interested in. They are my favorite cheap stack. Besides Marte at 5K, and Rojas, who I don't think I'd even play lefty and lefty here. Like, everybody else is like really, really cheap. Like, Luplow is probably one of my favorite plays on the slate at 2.7 as an outfielder. He might lead off, even if he's batting 5th, that's fine. Walker at 3.5 is a great price. Kelly is catcher at 3.2, potentially leading off. Even Buddy Kennedy's got some power there at 2.4 for second base. Perdermo's really cheap at shortstop. You can do a wraparound stack there, so lots of potential there. We have a nice West Coast battle here with the Giants and the Dodgers, Logan Webb and Tyler Anderson. Both pitchers in the 9K range, and both pitchers, I think, are going to be like to the risky, to the not interested. Just the Giants are going to throw so many righties out against Anderson, and then the Dodgers up against Webb. He's a decent pitcher, but I'm not playing 9-8 with him against the Dodgers. So, for bat-wise, I think San Francisco is my second favorite cheap stack for the righties, but just keep in mind if a righty pitcher comes in from the bullpen, if they do get to Anderson, then probably most of these guys are going to get pinch hit for, and you're going to see the lefties take over their spots. Especially like Flores, you'll probably see like Belt come in, things like that. Bart continues to be a really cheap catcher at 2.9 and has some power, so there's somebody interested in there. And the Dodgers behind the Yankees would probably be my second favorite GPP stack because they're against a tough pitcher, and they're probably gonna be super low owned on a 13-game slate and playing like in LA. So people usually like to watch their teams before they go to bed. So definitely a late night hammers GGPP stack here to take. Obviously, you know, they're going to be expensive too, like the Braves, so it's going to be hard to maybe get Burns and Scherzer in there. But if you go like Ohtani and Morton, or if you go Ohtani Gibson or Morton Gibson, you'd definitely be able to get them in, or take some of those 2K guys off of Oakland or Jones in the outfield there, and you have yourself a lineup. Final game we have is Houston Astros going out to Seattle, who's won 14 straight, but I think that probably ends here. Urquidy against Gonzalez. Not really interested in Urquidy here against Seattle. They've been sneaky good here. I think he's kind of a reverse splits guy too, and Seattle has some decent right-handed power. And Marco Gonzalez, I'm not interested in. I think Houston can definitely get to him. They seem to be getting back to almost full strength in their lineup also. So besides Brantley, but Pena's filled in really decently at the second hitting spot at shortstop there. So I think Houston's will be expensive, but I think they're second best spot on the slate here. And then Seattle on the other side, like I said, I like them. I'll have to look up. I believe Urquidy's reverse splits, but even if not, just all these guys have been hitting so well recently. So I'll probably take a GPP Seattle stack just to have them. So, okay, well, let's just quickly run through the pitching and stacks again for those of you who are listening and can't see the screen. So top pitchers, we have Burns, Scherzer, Ohtani, and Gossman. I think out of all those, I like Ohtani's discount the best at 9K, but Burns or Scherzer, I don't think you can go wrong if you compare both of them, and then go with like an Arizona stack or some other cheap ones. I think that definitely works also. Medium range, Morton clearly the top guy here at 8.8. Giolito would be second at 7.8, and Evaldi, Gallen, I think I like both of them the same. Evaldi's a little bit better pitcher. Gallen's got a little bit better matchup. And then Taillon, but against Baltimore. Cheap pitchers, Gibson for Philly. I think he's like the best value for your money tonight. Garrett, Quintana, and Rasmussen are also in the conversation. I'm fading Santella, Quantrill, Gonzalez, Hollard, and Corbin. I'm targeting against them tonight. Risky, I feel Wells against the Yankees, Webb against the Dodgers, Darvish against the Mets, Urquidy against Seattle, and Irving against Texas. And then really no interest in Steele, Keller, and Anderson from the Dodgers. Like in another slate, smaller slate, I'd probably have interest in them. So I'm not saying that they're complete fades, but I'm just saying that I'm just probably not going to be in my player pool tonight. Top stack, I love Milwaukee and their matchup against Sensatel. Houston, the White Sox, Philly, and Tampa Bay. GPPs, Yankees, but they're super expensive. The Dodgers, Seattle, Kansas City, and Texas. Your cheap ones are Arizona, the San Francisco Righties, Chicago Cubs, Baltimore, and then Oakland is the half-price dollar store clearance bin of players. Leverage ones, Atlanta, super expensive, up against Ohtani. San Diego against Scherzer, and then Colorado against Burns. And then 150 max, I think these teams are in consideration, but just don't make my top 10, would be Toronto, Boston, Cleveland, the Mets, and Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh only because, I mean, they have a decent matchup, but just the splits just doesn't work for them. And then the leftover teams are Miami, Angels, and Washington that I have really zero interest in playing tonight, even 150 max. So let me talk about some lineup builds, and we'll get you on your way for your day. So first up, on DK, cash pitcher, I'm taking Burns. I'm taking Morton as my SP2. I think the matchup against the Angels a little bit safer than the Braves. I think Ohtani might be the better pitcher with more upside, but the Braves bats scare me more than the Angels do, so that was my determining factor there. But if you want to go Ohtani and Scherzer here, I'm fine with that too. If I have to draw a line in the sand and make a decision on a video I'm doing, it's going to be Burns and Morton. And I think I'm going to hold to that for cash, my main cash line too. Kelly, a catcher. Like I said, I love Arizona. Cheap. Tellis at first base. Second and third base, and you can fill in with Arizona or Milwaukee guys here also to complete the stack. I'm taking Adames at third base, Luplo at outfield, and Yelich at outfield. And again, I'm going to try to finish off the stack with Arizona and Milwaukee guys. Or, if I can obviously take two cheap 2K guys and maybe pay up on one of the positions if I want, if there's really a one-off in one of those positions I want, but pretty much going to stick to the stacks here. For FanDuel, Morton's obviously my favorite SP. One, he's so much cheaper than the other pitchers on the one pitcher site here. Great matchup, could get 30, 40 points here on FanDuel, so quality start. I think he's definitely a great play. So that gives me a little bit more salary here. So I'm going to take Milwaukee again and look for a stack, but I'm going to throw Houston in as my second stack. So I'm looking at Bregman and Alvarez, and then I think you got to make the choice at second base. Do you take Altuve or you can take Wong, and there's significant savings there. So then in outfield, if you don't take Altuve, you might be able to get Tucker in there. If not, then I think you have like 2-2 left, and you can, if you play Wong at second base, and if you want to take Altuve or Tucker at the utility spot, then it leaves you 2-2, and I think there's a couple Arizona guys or other cheap guys that fit in there. So you'll just have to take them as a one-off, or get creative with the fill-ins. If there's another team that fits in there or some other players you really like, that's fine, but I'm really targeting Milwaukee and Houston, my top two stacks there with Morton. It fits really nicely. So next up for GPP, Scherzer or Gausman if you need a little bit more money. Scherzer's obviously safer. Gausman, I'm against the Red Sox. I just, looking at what he's done, I just think he kind of has their number, and I think he'll continue there. Ohtani is going to be my SP2. Again, you can take Scherzer and Gibson there if you want to pay down also in the GPP. So then the next choice is, do you want JT Realmuto or do you want to take a punt play there? Because he's really expensive, or it might be JT who's got the splits, and fade Schwarber because there's a lot of great outfield ones. So I'm pretty much going to fill in here with Phillies, and then like cheap stacks, I can take some of the pieces from the cheap ones there, like lower Arizona guys fit in, some of the San Francisco guys fit in, Oakland guys fit in, Baltimore guys fit in. Shortstop's a little hard with like some of those teams, so you might just need to take a punt or just take Perdomo, the 2-2 guy, for even though he's got the splits advantage on the bottom there if you just want to punt shortstop or pay up. So that's where I'm going on DK for GPP. If you like use Gausman, then you could probably get JT Realmuto and Schwarber in there. I think Munoz, I think it is, the second baseman for Philly, might be like at minimum price, and Verling, I also like him also. He, I believe, is outfield eligible, so I think he was like 2-4, 2-6. So if you don't want to play Realmuto as your fifth one, or if you don't want to play Schwarber, then there's another option for you for your Philly stack. So on FanDuel, taking Burns, Walker, Kelly at first base, catcher. You play the over in the utility if you want to. Then I'm going to either take the Yankees, so I'm going to take DJ LeMahieu, Donaldson. I'm going to punt shortstop. I'm going to take Judge, Stanton, and Lupo. So it's going to be an Arizona Yankees stack here. The punt, I think, could also be Perdomo or whoever the shortstop is. I think he's either 2K or 2-2 on FanDuel, also very, very cheap. Or the other side of it, I'm going to take three Phillies in Baum, Schwarber, and Castellanos. Again, if you want to throw in a cheap outfielder there for Arizona and not play Schwarber, but play like Hoskins or Realmuto in the utility, and that's definitely another option. But I kind of like it's GPP, taking a chance on Texas there and playing Simeon and Seager in their matchup there. Again, it's GPP, so there's a lot of options there. So pretty much here's what you want to do. Play Burns at pitcher, fill in Arizona guys, and then take whatever like high price stack you want. The Yankees, the Dodgers. If you want to try the Atlanta contrarian one there. Philly, like there's so many options tonight. So it's a really, really nice slate, and I really appreciate you watching. Sorry this was longer, but there's a lot to talk about. So it's great to be back after the All-Star break. Kinley should have the videos for tomorrow, and then I will be doing Sunday, and then we'll figure out next week on Sunday. So thanks for watching or listening on our podcast, and if we helped you, the best thing you can do for us is just like our videos, subscribe to our channel. That really goes a long way, helping us to get out to other people. Great first half of the season. I've met so many new DFS players, and I've really enjoyed talking with you, whether in the comments or on Twitter. You can hit me up at Megalure31. My DMs are open. Just need to follow me. I'll follow you back, and then you can ask whatever questions you want. Again, can't prove whole lineups for you, but willing to talk about like stacks or pitchers. And as always, check back to the video around 6:30 tonight. We'll if there's any changes in weather or pitchers got scratched or any like major news and like somebody got COVID or something like that, then we always try to throw out an update there for you, just as you're building your lineups, just in case you didn't catch anything. You built your lineups, you went and ate dinner, then just come back and check and see if there's any notes there, and it'll help you hopefully have a successful evening. So thanks again for watching. I'm Megalure31, and we will catch you next time.